What is it in your life that simply will not fade away? The question arrives softly, yet it sears inwardly, not upon the body, but deep within the spirit. We outgrow certain things and still preserve them like museum pieces behind glass, not because they help us now, but because they testify to who we used to be. Ancient fears, lingering embarrassments, and outdated identities linger at the heart's edges like specters murmuring, "Remember me, you have pleaded for renewal." You have repeated affirmations until your throat ached. You have implored God to raise you, rename you, and place honor upon your head. And still, nothing seems to change. Why does the stalemate remain? Because fresh life cannot spring up in ground, still choked and constricted by the roots of yesterday. Until the old growth is removed, the new cannot take hold. Imagine a gardener arriving to sow a radiant spring plot. He carries multicolored seeds, scented herbs, and fruit-bearing vines. Yet when he breaks the ground, he finds it matted with last year's weeds, obstinate, knotted, gripping the dirt as though claiming, "We were here first. We will not move." He could broadcast seeds across that surface, but they would not root. The prior growth must be extracted, the soil prepared, and what is dead must be laid to rest. Your inner life follows the same law. You cannot rise anew while leaving the corpse of your former self propped at your own table. You cannot sip fresh wine while gripping the chalice of your former toxins. Resurrection, by definition, requires change, and true change insists on burial first. Yet this is the point where many become stuck. We mistake burial for forfeiture. We assume that releasing the former self means the disappearance of who we are. We overlook that our true identity is not assembled from our injuries, but from God's enduring view of us. The reality is different. Burial is not surrender. Burial is authority. It is a deliberate declaration that says, "This no longer belongs to me. I release it to the earth that it may return to dust, and I may rise in truth." In choosing burial, you exercise rule over what once ruled you. Too frequently, we linger in a liminal space, one foot planted among graves, the other reaching toward promise. We sustain the past with our thinking, speaking, and feeling. We loop their words. We re-experience our losses. We narrate the old wounds until that story becomes more recognizable than our own face. Beloved, what feels familiar is not automatically true. The former self can seem safe simply because it is known, yet safety alone is not living. Life is motion restoration, and rising again, life is resurrection. And no resurrection occurs without a burial first. That prerequisite is unyielding. So I pose the question once more. What within you refuses to release its hold? Is it the bitterness that sits with you in silence? The hidden shame you never voice? The resentment you wear like proof that you endured? Or is it the persona shaped by others' judgments, a counterfeit portrait you keep displayed because the empty wall feels frightening? The Spirit's message for this moment is plain. You cannot bring a corpse into a new kingdom. That dead weight will press upon you until your legs give way. It will rob the breath intended for the melody of your new beginning. You are not being asked to excavate alone. Heaven partners with you. The instant you consent to enter what no longer serves divine assistance, readies the soil. Angels keep watch over the place of burial, and your very speech uttered with authority functions as the shovel in your hands. Yet before any of this, a choice must be made. Decision opens the way. This day I call you into sacred bravery, the courage to let go, and into the assurance that whatever is yielded to God is never lost in truth. What you plant in trust will return in splendor, not as it was, but remade, redeemed, and adorned with glory. If something within you is already awakening, declare it openly with these exact words: I am ready to bury what no longer serves me. Burying the former self is not a defeat. It is the exercise of reign. In release, you reclaim authority. Here lies the paradox that troubles human reasoning. In the visible realm, burial appears terminal, the book's last page, a fall into quiet. Yet in the spiritual realm, burial becomes a defining assertion of rule. It proclaims, I am no longer bound by the contracts my old self signed in ignorance. Scripture repeats this reality. In John 11, Lazarus lies wrapped in grave cloths within a dark tomb. Jesus delays his arrival. He does not hasten to cure Lazarus before death. He permits the burial to occur. Why is this? Because resurrection power addresses not the ill but the dead, and only after Lazarus was placed in the tomb could the fullness of God's glory be displayed. The law of the Spirit is unmistakable. What you refuse to bury God cannot resurrect. Burial does not mean deleting the past. It means revoking the past's authority to govern your present. Every hurt, every betrayal, every collapse often carries a spiritual contract, a conscious or hidden agreement that this moment determines your identity. I was abandoned, therefore I am unworthy. I failed, therefore I am incapable. They hurt me, therefore I must always defend myself. Burying the former self means ripping up those agreements before heaven's court. You take your place as judge over your inner realm and declare, this agreement is null and void. I will not carry it forward into my divine identity. Picture a compromised software system filled with glitches, malware, and covert scripts meant to disrupt everything. You cannot just install an update on top and hope for order. The corruption will taint the new install. First, you must remove, wipe, and purify the system. Only then can the fresh program operate cleanly. Likewise, the contaminated codes of the old self must be interred, not cosmetically patched, repainted, or rebranded, but truly buried. Understood this way, burial is active, not passive. It is the practice of spiritual governance. It announces to creation, I decide what remains in my domain and what does not. Some will worry, if I bury these parts, what will remain of me? The great unveiling is this: what endures is your authentic self, the person God envisioned before time. That self is untouched by sin, disgrace, or defeat. That self is clothed in righteousness and moves through God's garden unafraid. Releasing is not discarding riches, it is discarding refuse, masquerading as riches. Keep in mind how subtle the adversary is. He will argue that your wounds define your uniqueness, that your scars certify your strength, and that without your pain, you lack a story. Yet your sacred identity is founded not on mere survival, but on triumph, and triumph requires no scar to be real. Let us dwell on the seed's metaphor. Jesus teaches in John 12:24, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain. The seed's death is its moment of change. Hidden under earth unseen and compressed, its husk is removed. Then its inner life erupts with irresistible force. So it is with burying the old self. You are not ruining your life. You are sowing it into more fertile ground. Here is where bravery is needed. The graveyard will offer no applause. Memories will gather like mourners at the gate, pleading, don't leave us. Don't forget us. You must pass by them with head raised, fixed on the dawn of resurrection. Do not be startled if choosing burial makes life look like it's coming undone. Relationships may realign. Old patterns may resist. Your body might register the weight of letting go. This is not retribution. It is the earth cracking open to welcome the seed. You may cry while laying the former self to rest. That is sacred. Even Jesus wept before summoning Lazarus. Tears are the water that softens the soil for burial. Yet do not make lamentation your home. After the old self is placed in the ground, pronounce words of rule over it. I commit this false identity to the earth. I sever every tie it has to my spirit. I am not my past. I am not my pain. I am a new creation hidden with Christ in God. What has been buried in faith will rise in glory. Treat these statements as a formal decree. Your tongue is the Spirit's pen. When you utter them, they are inscribed in the invisible realm. Angels attest to them, and heaven concurs. From that point on, the burial stands completed. You might feel drawn to unearth it again, to revisit the memory, relive the quarrel, or test if the ache remains. Refuse that impulse. A planted seed dies under constant disturbance. Trust the burial. Trust the unfolding. Trust the God who pledged resurrection. If you have attempted rising without first burying, you know the fatigue, the struggle of climbing, while unseen roots you decline to sever drag you back. Today offers a better path, the law of burial embraced not as deprivation, but as authority. If you have traveled this way before, offer your wisdom below your testimony may open a door for another. A voice in your mind mimics you, yet it is not truly you. It talks with certainty, confidence, and haste. It knows your past intimately and turns it into a weapon. It whispers when you are weakest and yells when you are strongest. Its greatest danger is this: it speaks in the first person. I am afraid. I can't do this. I'm not ready. I'll fail again. These statements are not the voice of your divine nature. They are edicts from the imposter identity, the ego's voice. The ego excels at imitation. It occupies the mind's throne, wearing your features, echoing your cadence, and persuading you that its fears are facts. Its regime rests on memory, not truth. Each painful episode becomes a stone in its citadel. Each slight betrayal and breakdown becomes another blade in its armory. Envision an old realm where a usurper has taken the throne. The true sovereign, wise, noble, divinely appointed has been banished to the margins in obscurity. Meanwhile, the imposter marches through the city proclaiming laws that trap the populace in fear. They submit not out of devotion, but because they assume he is the only ruler available. This mirrors the ego's method. It rules through intimidation, rehearsing your limits, enlarging your faults, forecasting defeat before you start. It tries to persuade you that burying the old self is risky, because what if the new self is worse? It cautions against risk. Brands change as danger and labels stagnation as safety. The ego speaks with the accent of affliction. It feeds on yesterday's familiar pain. As long as you revisit it, the usurper retains control. The voice of rising speaks altogether differently. It proclaims, you are not your past. You are capable beyond measure. You are the image and likeness of God. You are free now. Once you learn the sound, the contrast is unmistakable. The ego speaks out of fear. The higher self speaks from love. The ego protects the former identity. The higher self summons the new. You discern the ego by its outcomes. Thoughts that leave you anxious, diminished, ashamed, or frozen come from the imposter. Thoughts that elevate, expand, calm, or rouse sacred courage belong to your divine self stepping forward. Here is the secret the ego hides. Once you identify it as counterfeit, its grip weakens. The false king survives on disguise. When the mask falls, the crowd begins to murmur, "This is not our ruler," and the true monarch's return commences. Practice this discernment now. Close your eyes briefly. Recall the most recent fear about your future, the last self-judgment that rang in your mind. Now take a step back. Picture it as a figure, a voice seated across from you. Does it bear the scent of love? Does it invite you into light? Or does it tug you toward shadow? If it drags you backward, it is not your essence. It is the ego, and it deserves no allegiance. Here, the burial grows more precise. You are not just interring memories or routines, you are burying the whole regime of the imposter king. Every edict it pronounced over you must be annulled, and every lie about your value erased from the record. How is this usurper overthrown? By voicing truth with greater force than its falsehoods? When the ego claims, "I am not enough," you answer, "I am complete in Him who is the head of all principality and power." When it says, "I will fail again," you proclaim, "I move from glory to glory, and every step I take prospers." When it argues, "It's safer to stay where I am," you affirm, "I am led beside still waters, and the Lord restores my soul. I do not fear forward movement." The counterfeit cannot endure in an environment filled with truth. Paraphrased text. Yet take heed, the ego refuses a peaceful exit. As you approach the moment of burial, its voice swells and rages. Like Pharaoh racing after Israel to the Red Sea's brink, it strains to haul you again into slavery. This is the exact place to plant your feet in authority and rule. You are the dwelling place. Your mind is the inner sanctuary. Your speech is the blade that guards and governs. Take your position in the sacred authority entrusted to you and declare word for word, "I dethrone the imposter. I silence the false voice. I cast down every thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. My mind is the mind of Christ. My heart is set on truth. I live from my divine identity, and no counterfeit shall rule me again." Put it in writing, say it out loud, and note it if necessary. I dethrone the imposter. Let both heaven and earth register your decree. No burial proceeds without an instrument suited to the task. In the physical realm, you reach for a spade or a shovel. In the spiritual realm, your instrument is the tongue. Your spoken words act as a surgeon's scalpel, dividing life from death, truth from deception, and the enduring from the fleeting. When you give voice, you make an incision. Your speech slices and separates. You are either severing bonds to the old self or tragically severing the lines to your own rising. Here is the sobering reality: the scalpel functions with accuracy, whether handled deliberately or not. Each idle statement about your life is still an incision, and that cut will either contribute to healing or deepen the wound. Proverbs affirms death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Your tongue is far more than a neutral conduit. It is a creative device. It erects altars or excavates graves. It swings doors wide or bolts them closed. Envision a master surgeon in a spotless operating theater. Each instrument is sterilized, arranged, and ready. He knows the heft of every tool, the precision of every cut, the cadence of every stitch. His hands remain steady because his mission is unmistakable: to restore and to heal. Now, Imagine the identical room under reckless hands, slicing where no incision belongs, speaking when silence would mend, letting poison loose instead of remedy. The very scalpel that can preserve life can also ruin it when handled without care and wisdom. For this reason, the Spirit disciplines us to speak with purpose. Your mouth is not a casual tool. It is an altar on which decrees are issued and destinies are formed and set in motion. As you enter the former self, your speech becomes the wax that seals the tomb. Without that verbal seal, the past will claw toward the surface and seek re-entry. This is more than figurative language. It is a principle of the Spirit. The invisible realm reacts to sound. God fashioned the world not through unspoken intention, but through utterance, "Let there be light." And light appeared. In like manner, when you proclaim, "Let the old self be buried," heaven mobilizes to fulfill that command. Yet a serious danger remains. Many attempt to enter the old self by simply going quiet. They assume, if I stop thinking about it, it will disappear. Silence, however, is not burial. It is neglect. Untreated wounds do not mend, they fester. A counterfeit identity that goes unchallenged by speech does not fade, it digs in deeper. Therefore, I urge you, pick up your scalpel. Let your words make the decisive incision. Let's render the image concrete. Picture your former self standing opposite you, draped in rags and gripping chains of fear, doubt, and shame. It feels familiar, like a shadow trailing you since birth. Now envision a band of light between you, the tether that has kept you bound. With your tongue as scalpel, you declare precisely, "By the authority of the Spirit of God, I sever every tie to the false self. I speak death to its reign. I declare that it no longer governs my mind, my emotions, or my actions. I release it to the earth, and I rise in my divine identity." When you speak such words, you are doing more than self-motivation. You are filing a legal decree in heaven's court. The bond is severed in the spiritual realm, despite any delay before visible evidence appears. I have witnessed sudden transformation when people learn to use their tongues in this manner. A woman I knew carried for decades her father's pronouncement, "You'll never amount to anything." That sentence became a blade etching limitation into her inner life. But the day she stood and proclaimed, "I cancel every word that ever spoke against my worth. I am the workmanship of God, created for good works," the atmosphere changed. The chain snapped. Her tears flowed not from grief, but from the release of freedom. The scalpel need not shout. Its effectiveness lies in precision, not noise. You do not have to raise your voice to move the air. You must speak from rightful authority. And authority flows from alignment with truth itself. Therefore, let your language be unmistakable. Ground it in Scripture, secure it in love, and hone it with conviction. Refuse half burials. Do not say, "I want to let go," declare, "I have let go." Do not say, "I hope to be free," affirm, "I am free now." The tomb remains ajar until your own speech seals it shut. Friend, if your view of speech is changing, rise where you are and announce, "My mouth is my altar." Repeat it until your inner being senses its gravity. Then speak life into every place where death has ruled, and pronounce death over every area where falsehood has overstayed. You serve as surgeon, priest, and witness, and each word you utter is inscribed for eternity. Every pilgrimage meets a threshold, a border, where the former terrain stops and the new landscape starts. For Israel, that boundary was the Jordan. In their wake stretched 40 wilderness years, patterns of doubt, rebellion, manna, and roaming. Before them lay the promised land, harvest cities, and inheritance. Yet entry into that new life required one act first. They had to pass through the waters. Likewise, you now face your own Jordan within. Behind you lies the former self with all the patterns that held you captive. Before you stretches the territory of your God-given identity. Between the two courses runs a river made for release and surrender. This passage is not geographical. It is entirely spiritual. Yet its force and consequences are every bit as tangible and consequential. Before stepping forward, ready your inner life. Gently close your eyes and draw in a slow, steady breath. Allow your lungs to fill, and as you release the air, picture every burden loosening and falling away. With each inhalation and exhalation, sense yourself growing lighter, clearer, and increasingly prepared to proceed. Step 1. Gather the old self. In your inner vision, behold a wide meadow beneath a dusky sky. At the heart of the field rises a majestic tree, roots sunk deep, branches spread like open arms. This is the tree of memory where every chapter of your story abides. Resting beneath its canopy is a cloth-wrapped bundle. When you draw near, you recognize it holds everything called your old self. Fears, resentments, harsh self-verdicts, and borrowed counterfeit identities. Lay your hand upon the bundle and register its heaviness. Watch which feelings surface: grief, release hesitation, or all three. Do not suppress them. Simply witness and affirm, "This is what I have borne until now." Step 2. Walk to the river. You pick up the bundle. Though weighty, your steps feel led and steadied. Crossing the meadow, you catch the sound of running water. The Jordan stretches broad and deep, mirroring the sun's gold as it descends. You have reached the appointed place of burial. Across the water stand waiting figures, luminous, robed in white, smiling as you draw near. They are the witnesses to your passage, angels, forebears, and holy ones who once traversed this very path. Step 3. The burial. Kneeling at the river's rim, you feel the swift current, eager to bear off what you surrender. You gather the bundle to your heart one final time and breathe a farewell. Your season is finished. You are not mine to bear anymore. I return you to the soil, to these waters, into God's keeping. Now declare these words out loud without alteration. I release the old self. I bury every false identity, every lie I have believed, every wound I have worn as a name. I sever every tie to the past. I cast this into the river, and I will not take it back. I cross now into my divine identity, whole, free, and crowned in Christ. Lay the bundle upon the water. Observe the current, claim it first gently, then decisively, until it vanishes from view altogether. Step 4. Cross over. Enter the stream. Sense the coolness on your feet, your shins, then up to your waist. With each stride, you realize the water does not hinder. It yields and opens, shaping a pathway for you. The river recognizes you and reverences your crossing. Midway, stop briefly. Glance back once, not yearning but grateful. Murmur, "Thank you for your lessons, but you are not my dwelling." Then face forward and continue. Step by step, feel burdens dissolving and brightness intensifying. From the opposite shore, the witnesses lift a song like rushing waters, like wind through branches, like your heart's rhythm amplified. Step 5. Arrival. You climb onto the farther bank. The earth underfoot is steady, and the very air is changed, clearer, lighter, humming with promise. A shining figure approaches to set a robe upon your shoulders, spotless white, perfectly tailored. Another settles a crown gently upon your head. These are tokens of your risen identity. You are now dressed in the reality of who you are in God's sight. A voice resounds, profound, tender, immovable. You are my beloved. In you, I am well pleased. Allow those words to permeate you, imprinting and sealing this holy moment within your spirit. Step 6. First declarations. Standing upon the far side, give voice to your opening proclamations as a new creation. I have crossed over. The old has been buried. The new has risen. I walk in my divine identity. I am free. I am whole. I am unshakable in the love of God. My mouth is my altar, and my words create life. I am the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. Recite these decrees until they beat within you like a steady pulse. When you open your eyes, hold this certainty your crossing was genuine. In the unseen realm, an actual shift occurred. You did not merely visualize, you acted. The old self is buried, and you have entered a consecrated threshold. If you have crossed, display this proclamation for others to witness. I have crossed over. Let the number of witnesses increase and confirm it. They labeled her nobody for so many years that the name nearly stuck. The world often brands you by your wounds, errors, and vacancies. Failure. Too much. Not enough. If you are not watchful, those labels seep into your marrow until they masquerade as your truth. Yet a higher law governs this. Your authentic identity is not recovered from past whispers. It is spoken into existence. History holds no right to name you. That prerogative belongs to heaven alone, and heaven's vocabulary is framed by I am. When Moses faced the burning bush shaking under the weight of his inadequacy, he asked, "Who shall I say sent me?" God did not respond with a human job title, a curriculum vitae, or a genealogical explanation. He answered with the name above names. I am that I am, the everlasting present, the wellspring of existence itself. In that revelation, God disclosed a governing principle for your becoming. Whatever you join to I am begins to materialize, shaping both your inner reality and your outward life. I knew a young man who lived under the conviction that he was unwanted, orphaned not only by name, but in soul. Tales about his origins were wrapped in shame. Voices around him insisted he had been forsaken, overlooked, and set aside. Consequently, he moved through the world like a shadow, shunning notice, and assuming he was appointed to insignificance. Then, by a chain of unforeseen turns, he was called to an old estate beyond the city's edge. An elder with gentle eyes presented him with a sealed envelope. Within lay a letter stamped with a royal insignia. Its message declared, "You are the heir to the house of Ainsworth, rightful son of the king. You have been sought, not forsaken. The throne awaits you." Initially, he let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh, sure they had mistaken him for someone else. But the elder set a mirror before him and said, "The king's blood flows in your veins. Your name was inscribed in the register of heirs before your birth. Your belief cannot erase what already is." Something deep awakened within him, fierce, ancestral, undeniable. He straightened his posture, and his speech took on new cadence. His external situation had not shifted at all. What changed was this: a pronouncement of identity had been made, and he agreed with it. Understand this clearly: divine identity is not excavated like an ancient relic. It is proclaimed as a royal edict. It does not hinge on others' approval or the exhibits of your history. It issues from your Creator's authority and is established as you align your agreement with His Word. Each time you utter "I am," you place the pen in creation's hand. You sign a covenant in the invisible realm. All creation attends to your "I am" and marshals itself to bring it into form. Angels mark it down, and your subconscious mind reorganizes itself to fulfill what your lips declared. For this reason, the adversary is zealous to coax you into pairing "I am" with diminishment, disgrace, or defeat. I am tired. I am unlucky. I am unworthy. Unaware, you are drafting decrees that legitimize constriction and license limitation in your life. Yet the instant you reclaim sovereignty over your tongue, you can nullify those edicts and proclaim new ones. Trade "I am" overlooked for "I am" seen, chosen, and celebrated. Replace "I am always behind" with "I am" aligned with divine timing, and let your speech install a new order. This is not pretending until circumstances catch up. It is decreeing until identity settles, in proclaiming truth until you embody it. I recall the first time I renamed myself in the Spirit. Standing before a mirror, I trembled. Old labels clung to me like soaked clothing. My mind objected. You cannot declare victory, see your failures. You cannot claim prosperity, see your balance. Yet a truer voice breathed within heaven names you by your completion, not by your starting place. So I spoke it aloud without alteration. I am who God says I am. Initially, it sounded like an echo ricocheting through an empty hall. Still, I repeated it again and again. Each utterance struck like a chisel tapping stone from a veiled sculpture. In time, the echo swelled into an anthem, and the statue stood revealed. Child of God, now is your hour to revoke the old labels and declare the new. Your name is not abandoned. Your name is appointed. Your name is not broken. Your name is beloved. Your name is not unworthy. Your name is crowned with glory. Speak it out now, even through trembling. I am who God says I am. I am light in darkness. I am the head and not the tail. I am abundance walking. I am healed, whole, and holy. Creation itself awaits your declaration. Your very cells await it. Your destiny waits as well. And once you speak, heaven answers with resonance. Yes, that is your true identity. Write it boldly so agreement seals the decree. I am who God says I am. A spiritual principle operates with the exactness and firmness of gravity. Mutually opposed truths cannot simultaneously inhabit your inner life. Light and darkness will not share the same breath. Inevitably, one displaces the other. This dynamic is the law of substitution, the disciplined act of exchanging each lie for a superior, higher-order truth. Picture a pitch-black room. You might waste hours attempting to shove out the darkness, and nothing would shift. Yet the instant you light a match, illumination occupies the space at once. You did not battle the dark. You replaced it. This is exactly how your thought life and spoken decrees function. From birth onward, the world fitted you with words like garments, some life-giving, others toxic. The sober fact is this: each falsehood spoken over you persists until you intentionally supplant it with truth. Mere silence does not uproot a lie. It simply permits deeper rooting in the shadows. Uttering "I am not enough" surrenders the soil of your mind to that seed. Left alone, it matures into thorns. The only remedy is to sow another seed, one living and timeless, which is the spoken decree of truth itself. At the first appearance of a lie, substitute it with its divine opposite. Suppose a voice declares, "You'll never succeed." Uncontested, that phrase becomes a failure blueprint. But if as it arrives you reply, "I am destined for good success," Everything I set my hand to prospers, the pattern is broken, and a new architecture is drawn. If your inner critic insists you're too old to begin, counter with, I am renewed like the eagle. My youth is restored daily. If fear hisses, you're going to fail again, answer with, I am more than a conqueror. I cannot fail, for I am aligned with divine purpose. This is not escapism or denial. It is deliberate substitution. You exchange counterfeits for the genuine, shadows for substantial, enduring reality. I once coached a woman who bore the tag unlovable for years, a lie seeded in her during a painful breakup. She attempted to ignore it and to bury it beneath busyness, yet the ache persisted. When I taught her the law of substitution, she began intercepting the thought, I am unlovable, and replacing it immediately with I am cherished beyond measure. I am the beloved of God. She practiced this for weeks. Initially, it felt absurd, as if addressing an empty room. In reality, she was addressing her own soul, and the soul heeds such words. Gradually, her demeanor transformed. She drew people who honored her and later formed a healthy, loving partnership. The reason was simple. She uprooted a weed and cultivated a garden of truth. The law extends beyond reaction. It is also proactive. You can flood your inner world with truth in advance of any lie, a practice I call preloading the atmosphere. On waking, declare, I am whole, I am wise, I am abundant, I am led by divine wisdom. When negativity approaches, it will find no room, each chamber already illuminated and occupied. Here is a practical exercise to employ immediately. List the 3 recurring lies you hear within. Next to each, write the explicit counter-truth from God's perspective. Then pronounce each truth audibly 3 times in the morning and 3 times at night. For instance, lie, I never have enough. Truth, I always have more than enough. I live in divine overflow. Lie, I'm not smart enough. Truth, I have the mind of Christ. Wisdom flows through me. Lie, good things don't last for me. Truth, my blessings are permanent. What God gives, no man can take away. Practice daily. This rewrites your interior dialogue. As that dialogue shifts, your external world starts to conform to it. Conditions begin mirroring your decree. Others respond to you differently because your self-treatment has changed. Opportunities emerge because you cease speaking like a victim and begin issuing royal commands. Let us rehearse this jointly. I will state a lie. You will answer aloud with truth. Even in solitude, speak it. Heaven listens, and so does your soul. Lie, you're stuck where you are. You, I am divinely guided into my next place of victory. Lie, you'll never heal from this. You, I am already whole. My healing is complete. Lie, you're too small to make a difference. You, I am a world changer. My life impacts nations. This is not mere positive thinking. It is spiritual warfare enacted through voiced reality. Light surpasses darkness and truth transcends falsehood, but their superiority is activated when spoken aloud. The law of substitution forbids emptiness. You cannot merely discontinue belief in a lie. You must inaugurate belief and speech in truth. Once you practice this, the adversary is disarmed of his most effective tool, your consent. Seal this moment by making it public. Proclaim a truth you have chosen and write it boldly for others to witness. Your decree might be the light that displaces another person's darkness. Share your favorite truth declaration below to encourage and ignite others. In spiritual reality, beginnings are birthed by speech. The creative seed is always a word. You may harbor visions for years, but they lie latent until your mouth animates them with breath. In Genesis, God did not merely contemplate light. He pronounced, "Let there be light," and light appeared. Speech converted the invisible into the visible. This is the divine template you speak prior to seeing you declare, before any evidence presents itself. Faith does not stand idle for verification. Faith generates the very proof it professes. I once counseled a man unemployed for more than a year. Daily, he recited the same script: "I don't have a job. I'm broke. No one's hiring." Those confessions functioned as decrees, and his circumstances followed them with precision. I urged him to revise his confession. Each morning, I advised face the mirror and declare, "I am employed. I am in the perfect position, earning more than I need, doing work I love." He laughed and answered, "That would be lying." "No," I replied softly, "that is prophesying. The truth you speak derives from heaven's record rather than earth's report." Hesitantly, he started. Initially, the phrases felt cumbersome, as though his spirit lacked the strength to lift them. Yet within 3 weeks, a company he never contacted called him and extended an offer surpassing his expectations. He discovered the principle I'm conveying. Resurrection initiates with the mouth's decree. Imagine an architect whose mind holds a complete structure: rooms, corridors, arches vivid and exact. Yet before a single brick is set, she renders speech into plans articulating details so clearly that others perceive them. Construction cannot commence until the plan is verbally specified and translated. Your destiny follows this identical process. Heaven preserved the blueprint, but your words transmit it to earth. When you decree it, you dispatch construction directives to the unseen agents appointed to your path. We frequently claim to be waiting on God, when in reality, heaven often awaits our decree. Angels assigned to your calling respond to the resonance of God's word, whether proceeding from his throne or echoing from your mouth, for you bear his image. Hence, silence poses grave risk when you are contending for a miracle. A promise never voiced is a seed stored in a drawer, brimming with life yet unplanted and unfruitful. Resurrection follows a cadence. First, the old passes away. Next arrives stillness, a season inviting the lie that nothing is occurring. Breakthrough begins the moment you speak, as though completion has already arrived. When Jesus faced Lazarus's tomb, he did not offer a lengthy, frantic plea. He simply commanded Lazarus come forth, and the dead obeyed, the voice saturated with resurrection power. Do you perceive the order? The command came before the proof. Indeed, the spoken word generated the proof. I recognize this may initially feel unnatural, as though your speech sprints beyond your circumstances. That is precisely the design. Your mouth is meant to lead your reality forward. You do not declare, "I am healed," solely because your body presently reflects health. You declare it because your word summons your body toward wholeness. Likewise, you do not say, "I am wealthy," because your balance overflows. You say it because your decree sows the seed of abundance into life's soil. Let us practice. Identify one domain in which your voice has been silent or pessimistic, perhaps physical health, relational life, or vocational purpose. Now lift that area and pronounce resurrection over it. Say, "It is done. It is whole. It is flourishing." Notice the atmosphere alter as you speak. That sensation is heaven moving in response to the velocity of your decree. A woman I know was told she would never conceive. For years, she dodged the subject because voicing her longing hurt too deeply. After learning this principle, she began declaring daily, "I am a joyful mother of children." My home is filled with laughter. She purchased infant clothes and set an extra place at the table in faith. 2 years on, she cradled her firstborn. She did not postpone speech until results appeared. She spoke persistently until vision became sight. Today, I invite you into the same bravery. Your resurrection in body provision calling or community begins the moment your mouth comes into agreement with heaven's word. Do not wait for a sensation or external confirmation. Declare it at once, it is done. And when you speak these words, do not murmur them like a timid wish. Proclaim them boldly as if you were broadcasting a decree to all creation. Repeat it once more without hesitation. It is done. Now set a seal on your declaration by sharing it publicly so others may agree with you. It is done. Ahead of every crown in the kingdom stands a cross. This is not retribution. It is formation. The cross does not close the narrative. It is the purifying fire that fashions a ruler capable of bearing the crown without being broken beneath its weight. In ordinary life, we recoil from pain loss and surrender, treating them like foes. Yet within the Spirit's realm, such seasons are thresholds. They remove what has no right to pass into the throne room and train the hand entrusted with authority to open in generosity rather than clamp shut in fear. Consider this tale: a young prince had a father king renowned for peerless wisdom. The prince possessed courage, drive, and a restless urge to reign. Yet the king discerned a hazard coiled within his son, an untested pride capable of undoing the realm if left unrefined. One day, the king summoned his son to the great hall and placed the royal sword in his hands. "This is the weapon of our line," he said, "and in time it will be entrusted to you." The prince clasped the hilt, sensing its gravity and power. But before triumph could swell within him, the king added a condition. "First, you must return it." Perplexed, the prince protested. "How will I defend the realm if I relinquish it?" "You must master ruling without relying on force," replied the king. "Only then will the sword become your servant instead of your master." Thus, the prince set the blade at his father's feet. Rather than govern from marble halls, he was sent among the people. He labored in their fields, mediated their quarrels, and practiced listening far more than speaking. Years passed, and when the king once more placed the sword in his son's hands, it bore a new meaning, no longer a trophy of might, but an instrument for shielding the vulnerable. The crown soon followed, and he wore it without conceit, for the cross season had completed its refining task. Understand this: the cross chapters, loss, surrender, delay, are not designed to shame you. They are crafted to remove anything in you that would abuse the crown. They are God's safeguard, so that when the weight of glory rests on you, it does not press you into ruin. We crave coronation without cruciform preparation, triumph without yielding. But the kingdom operates otherwise. Even Jesus, for the joy set before him, endured the cross. The joy pointed to the crown. The cross formed the necessary passageway. Picture gold subjected to flame. The fire does not consume the gold itself. It consumes the dross that dims its brilliance. Likewise, your trials are not assigned to annihilate you. They burn off fear, pride, and stubborn self-reliance, so that God's unclouded image can be reflected through you. If you stand in a season where something precious seems removed from your grasp, I urge you interpret it not as deprivation, but as the King inviting you to set down your sword so he may place a greater one in your hands. I recognize the difficulty. Surrender is never simple. Something in us clutches what we assume we must retain. Yet the kingdom's paradox prevails. What you yield to God returns to you, increased and multiplied. The grain that falls into earth and dies becomes the one that produces much fruit. The dream you place upon the altar returns vibrant and fortified. The love you release rather than hoard in fear matures into love that cannot be taken from you. When you recognize your cross as a hidden coronation, your perspective transforms. Resistance eases. You start asking, Lord, what are you shaping within me through this? Then sorrow becomes instruction. Delay becomes apprenticeship, and surrender becomes a strategy for reign. Draw a deep breath and bring to mind what presently feels like your cross, the delay, the relinquishing, the hard stretch. Now pronounce this decree over that very place. I choose the crown. I embrace the cross that leads to it. Repeat it steadily until your heart consents. This is not capitulation. It is leadership germinating like a seed. In time, you will look back and see this was not destiny deferred, but destiny laid down as a foundation. You will enter rooms you could not have sustained without this season's training, and the crown will rest lightly upon you because your heart has been tempered to carry it. Write it boldly where your eyes will meet it often, so your spirit will remember, I choose the crown. This is the point where instruction turns into cadence, and cadence matures into real transformation. For the next 7 days, we will move together through a practice potent enough to repattern your inner world. It is the 7-day resurrection decree practice, a week of speaking life again and again until life itself answers back. A decree is no mere wish or polite request. It is a royal order released under heaven's authority and upheld by spiritual law. To decree is not to beg for an outcome. It is to proclaim that the matter is accomplished in the unseen and to command its manifestation in the visible. The secret is consistency. One decree resembles a planted seed. Daily decrees are the watering light and tending that leave the seed with no option but to germinate and grow. Here is the framework for the practice. For a full 7 days, speak your resurrection decrees 3 times daily, morning, noon, and night. Voice them audibly and wholeheartedly, engaging your voice, your feelings, and your God-breathed imagination. Why aloud? Because inner thoughts shape the inner person, but spoken words sculpt both interior and exterior worlds. Sound bears vibration, and vibration influences matter. Why with feeling? Because emotion is the propellant that drives the decree deeper into the subconscious and outward into the spiritual environment. Why repetition? Because repeated speech etches truth into your being until it becomes reflexive and enduring. Day 1. Break agreement with the old. Morning, face a mirror and declare, I break every agreement with the old names and labels. I cancel every decree of lack, loss, and limitation. I am free from every false identity. I am who God says I am. Midday, take a 5-minute walk and murmur, I am no longer bound to what was. My future is wide open in God. My steps are ordered into abundance. Evening before sleep, whisper, I release the past. I rest in my true identity. I am whole. Day 2, declare the new name. Morning, I am crowned with glory and honor. I am the head and not the tail. I am blessed and highly favored. Midday, my name is victory. My name is overflow. My name is chosen. Evening, I sleep in peace knowing my identity is secure in God. Day 3, substitute every lie with truth. Morning, every lie I once believed is replaced with truth. I am loved. I am powerful. I am unstoppable. Midday, Train the substitution reflex when a negative thought surfaces, halt it and audibly declare the opposite truth. Evening, I close my eyes on truth. I wake up in truth. I live by truth. Day 4. Speak the finished thing. Morning, it is done. My desires are complete in God's plan. I live in the finished work. Midday, I walk as one whose prayers are already answered. Evening, I rest in the reality that it is already accomplished. Day 5. Surrender for greater authority. Morning, I lay down my will for God's will. I surrender my plans for His perfect plan. Midday, every cross I carry becomes my crown. Every loss becomes gain. Evening, I am safe in surrender. I am rich in obedience. Day 6. Own the crown. Morning, I am entrusted with authority to bless and build. I reign with wisdom and compassion. Midday, I speak and it is so. I decree and it stands fast. Evening, I am ready for the weight of the crown because I have been refined. Day 7. Seal the resurrection life. Morning, I am risen. I am restored. I am radiant. Midday, this is my season of manifestation. Everything I decree in alignment with God's will comes to pass. Evening, I live the resurrection life daily. My words create my world. During these 7 days, maintain a journal. Note your decrees and the changes you observe. Do not chase spectacle. Attend to gentle shifts your mood, your conversations, your widening sense of possibility. These are early shoots of resurrection taking hold. Most crucially, do not cease after day 7. These days form a launch pad, not a finish line. This is no sprint. It is the start of a lifelong cadence. The more faithfully you decree, the more visibly your world conforms to the words you declare. Now let us close this segment with a shared seal. If possible, stand. Lay a hand over your heart. Declare with full authority, I commit to 7 days of resurrection decrees. I rise daily. I live in victory. I am who God says I am. Write it where you and others will see it. Often, I rise daily. The city belongs to you. It is entrusted into your care. Its ramparts rise high, shining beneath the sun, a sanctuary of beauty and resilience. You sit upon its throne, adorned not with metal, but with the authority of a divine decree. Your sovereignty stands firm, except when you yourself unlatch the gates to an adversary. And within this city, the gatehouses are your lips. Your spoken words stand guard like sentries, either repelling the tide or beckoning it inward. Florence Scovel Shinn observed, "Your word is your wand," and cautioned that this wand can conjure blessing or summon a curse, depending on the wielder. Many cross into victory and then talk themselves back into loss. They move from sickness to health, yet speak as if disease still adheres to them. They enter provision, yet keep confessing, barely making it as though their barns were still barren. Picture this: a grand city, freshly freed after years of siege. Crowds celebrate, music swells through the avenues, and the markets brim with goods. But if the gatekeeper, fatigued or inattentive, lets the portals stand unguarded, the former invaders slip back not through assault, but through tacit invitation. So it goes with your mouth as well. Each idle utterance leaves a gate cracked open. Every breath of complaint becomes a beacon, lighting the way for former foes to return. Guarding the sovereign seat of speech. From this moment forward, regard yourself as the sovereign on high alert over each pronouncement you release. A throne is not merely claimed once. It is preserved continuously by the stream of words you speak. Declare this now: I am the keeper of my gates. My words uphold my reign. This is not an invitation to fearful muteness. It is a call to vigilant articulation. A true king delights in proclaiming, not shrinking back, and yet is too wise to sign decrees that undermine his own realm. Each sentence you utter drafts the blueprints of your tomorrow. Every I can't chips away at your tower of possibility. Every I never excavates a trench of limitation. Every that always happens to me sows weeds throughout the garden of your dominion. The Watchtower Discipline. Here is how to practice standing watch. For the coming 24 hours, measure every utterance by a single test. Does this fortify my throne, or does it erode it? If it strengthens, you speak it with boldness. If it weakens you, reshape it before it ever leaves your mouth. Example, replace. I'm so tired with I am being renewed with every breath. Instead of saying I can't afford that, affirm I am aligning with the provision for all my desires. You are not fabricating, you are legislating. You are not pretending, you are proclaiming. The parable of the gatekeeper. Once in a thriving city, a gatekeeper cherished his charge. He vetted entrants, carefully questioning each traveler's intent. Over time, as peace appeared fixed, his vigilance waned. He began waving strangers through, assuring himself, "It will be fine." One morning, a tattered figure arrived, murmuring stories of lack and deprivation. Unthinking, the gatekeeper admitted him. Soon, another appeared, peddling fear and betrayal, and once more, the gate swung wide. By evening, the city's laughter thinned to a hush. Shopkeepers shuttered early. Neighbors whispered in dim corridors. The seed of defeat was sown not by warfare, but by words admitted within the walls. The lesson is plain: not all visitors merit entry, and not every thought deserves a voice. The emotional turn. Hear this: each defeatist phrase uttered aloud resembles the signing of a decree that strips your crown. Conversely, every life-filled word spoken in faith sounds a trumpet that summons heaven's hosts to uphold your rule. Keep your seat. Watch the gates. Permit no phrase to pass your lips that fails to agree with the glory entrusted to you. Declare this now. My mouth speaks only what builds. My lips guard my destiny. My words build my world. And let that final line resound until it is etched into the inner walls of your heart. Closing this segment, you have risen to the seat of authority, yet its preservation rests upon vigilance and speech. You are at once monarch and guardian of gates. Speak as one who grasps the true weight of the crown. If you embrace your gatekeeping role, affirm it aloud or in writing. My words build my world. Two distinct voices speak from within you. The first is ancient and threadbare, from endless repetition, reverberating with fears, routines, and limits belonging to a self you have already outgrown. The other voice is fresh, elevated, and undefiled, the tone of your ascended self, birthed from truth, robed in holy confidence, and articulating only what harmonizes with the life you have already chosen as your own. Each day's direction is decided by which voice you choose to heed and respond to, for your answer sets your course. Envision yourself standing at a junction where two distinct roads diverge before you. To your left lies the familiar track, cramped, worn by old footsteps bordered with thorns, labeled "not enough, too late," and what if it fails? It is recognizable, certainly, yet also stale, burdened, and breathless, lacking any fresh breeze. To your right stretches a golden road edged with gardens that never fade. The air vibrates with possibility. Along this way, even the trees seem to bend in acknowledgement of your authority. This is the root of the ascended voice speaking from victory, already secured rather than striving toward it. With every new morning, you return to that same divide, awaiting your deliberate turning. And the act of choosing occurs not by your steps, but by your speech. The pivot happens on your tongue. The old voice often sounds sensible, practical, and draped in the language of realism. It will offer lines such as, "That's too big a dream. You've never done that before." Be careful not to get your hopes up. Yet the ascended voice carries a heavenly resonance. It will declare statements like, "I was born for this. My steps are ordered. What I seek is seeking me now." The distinction is not loudness, but frequency. The ascended voice resounds with authority precisely because it knows the result is already determined. Whenever the old voice murmurs, stop and inquire. Who exactly is talking here? If it belongs to the former self, there is no need to debate. Simply pivot and audibly announce the opposite truth in the tone of your ascended identity. Example: old voice, "You're not ready." Ascended voice, "I am fully equipped for every good work now." Old voice, "People won't receive you." Ascended voice, "The right doors are open and the right hearts are ready." This is not primarily a test of grit. It is an identity selection. You need not muzzle the old self. You simply out-decree it with the higher voice. In former kingdoms, a herald bore the monarch's message to the populace. His duty was never to argue, revise, or doubt the edict, only to declare it precisely as received. Your ascended voice functions as the Spirit's herald inside you. Its singular assignment is to proclaim what heaven has already spoken over your life. When you inhabit that voice, your words carry a palpable quality, a gravity, a calm assurance that even strangers sense without needing persuasion. Consider this tale: a ruler dispatched 2 envoys to 2 cities. The first was entrusted with a proclamation of prosperity and alliance, but remembering old wars and betrayals, he diluted the message with hesitation and doubt. On arrival, the city's elders wavered, suspicion rose, and the alliance dissolved before it began. The second messenger carried the identical decree. He delivered it verbatim, infused with confidence, joy, and certainty. The city welcomed the proclamation, the alliance was sealed, and both realms flourished. You serve as the courier of your own destiny. Will you thin the victorious message with skepticism, or will you bear it intact in its pure ascended clarity? The ascended voice is far more than positive thinking. It is union with the Spirit's mind. Speaking from it elevates you into a higher resonance. Solutions show up before the problem matures. Provision meets you in motion, and peace stands independent of conditions. You might start the day speaking ordinarily, yet once you switch to the ascended voice, conditions begin to tilt. Even your cells seem to respond. Hidden doors come into view. Others perceive your certainty and reflect it back to you. To root this voice in your routine, enact this brief morning ritual. Stand upright with shoulders back, as though a crown were being set upon you. Lay a hand upon your heart and gently close your eyes. Declare audibly, "Today I speak only from the throne. My words are the voice of my ascended self. I decree abundance, health, joy, and victory in every step." Pause to feel the resonance of those words traveling through your entire being. Repeat this practice anytime you sense yourself sliding back into the old register. Living by the ascended voice is not sporadic technique. It is a sustained posture. It is the continual choice to speak from established victory. rather than from the lingering shadow of the past. When you adopt this stance, the road before you doesn't just open, it elevates and meets you halfway. If you elect the higher register today, write this as your witness I ascend. Wealth is not a temporary visitor in your story. It is a settled inhabitant that lives here to stay. Health is not a passing guest. It is your covenant birthright and native condition. Joy is not a momentary flicker. It is the very air you inhale the climate of your life. After long seasons of scarcity in finances, vitality, or gladness, abundance can seem like a brief season instead of a steady state. You may rejoice when it comes, yet quietly ask, how long will this remain? That very question prevents you from embracing abundance as your everyday norm. The reality is this: what you consistently declare as ordinary becomes ordinary in practice. Picture a garden space. At the outset, it was only hard, stony soil. You toiled to break ground sow seeds and shelter them from tempests. The earliest blooms felt priceless. You crouched to guard them, astonished they appeared at all. Over time, the garden expanded. Roots sank deeper, soil grew richer, and the air filled with perfume. Blossoms multiplied until they overflowed the borders. Birds found homes. Butterflies wove their dances. The gardener ceased gasping at every flower and began strolling through daily beauty, understanding this was the garden's new, steady reality. So it goes with abundance once your words consistently align with it. Formerly, wealth may have arrived as an occasional windfall, health as a brief interval, joy as an isolated event. As your ascended self, you cease waiting for them, you walk in them. You speak of them as the baseline rather than the outlier. You no longer say, I hope I have enough this month. You declare, I always have more than enough for every good desire. You do not say, I hope I feel well tomorrow. You affirm, I am daily renewed in strength and vitality. You do not say, I hope something good happens. You state, goodness and mercy follow me every step I take. Many testimonies open with, I never thought this could happen to me. And though surprise at blessing is lovely, there comes a moment when wonder matures into steady confidence. A woman shared that she once wept at every bill, fear some month's relief in others. She started declaring, I am always paid in full, and there is more left over. Initially, it felt implausible, even naive. She persisted. Within a year, bills were easy savings, grew investments began. Reviewing her accounts later, she noticed months had passed without money fear. Abundance had shifted from exception to normal. The very same principle applies to the body. A man exhausted by years of recurring illness began daily affirmations. Every cell of my body is radiant with health. My strength renews like the eagle's. In time, his body not only healed, he found himself summiting trails he once considered impossible. Health transitioned from episodic recovery to a sustained way of living. The essential key is language that fits the identity you have embraced. You do not speak as a guest in your own realm. You speak as a rightful resident who belongs. If you keep describing abundance as coming, you consign it to perpetual distance. Speak it as here, and it anchors itself in your present. To apply this, choose the 3 arenas of abundance, wealth, health, and joy, and compose your personal, normal declarations. Example, wealth money flows to me easily and consistently. I live in overflow. Health, my body is vibrant, strong, and filled with light. Joy, I wake each day in glad expectation of good. Repeat them at dawn and before sleep until they become as natural as your own breath. Remember, true abundance is neither noisy nor frantic. It does not hover at your door uncertain of its welcome. It enters, rearranges the room, and takes up residence for good. When your language mirrors that settled assurance, the outer world reshapes itself to correspond. If you are prepared to embrace this, completely declare in writing, "My abundance is inevitable." You have already risen. The stone has been moved, the grave linens set aside, and you have stepped into the brightness of a life once only imagined. That moment was your resurrection. Yet resurrection is not a finish line, it marks the commencement of rule. Many pause at the doorway, thankful for liberty, yet uncertain how to wield it, blinking in the sun and assuming the narrative is complete. The Spirit, however, declares, "You were raised not merely to live, but to rule." Picture a candle lit in darkness. Its flame lets you see your hands and the faces nearby. But when carried into streets and marketplaces where shadows gather, that light multiplies. Strangers you've never met begin to see because of it. Your triumph is not solitary. It signals to those still entombed that rising is within reach for them as well. In earlier kingdoms, a ruler returning from victory did not slip silently into private rooms. A procession followed, citizens lined the streets. Banners streamed, trumpets blared. This was not ego, it was witness, a public assurance to the realm. We have prevailed, we are secure, the king reigns, so it is for you. Each restored word, each prosperous stride, each joyful deed becomes a banner lifted high for others to behold. The ripple effect is tangible and real. One person escapes debt, and faith for freedom begins to rise in their household as well. One person regains health, and neighbors adjust their habits, stirred by visible example. One person embraces joy amid hardship, and those nearby discover that joy is not mere reaction. It is a way of ruling one's life. Hear me, your reign is never domination, but elevation. It is the cultivation of an atmosphere where people breathe easier, think loftier, and expect better simply by being in your presence. A ruler's impact is found not only in great edicts, but in the daily climate they create. When you speak, does hope increase? When you act, does faith expand? When you arrive, does the room rise? A tale tells of a village settled in a valley's shadow. For years the people feared a mountain they deemed cursed, its summit cloaked in cloud. A traveler arrived describing the summit's beauty, the clear air, the horizons without end. They scoffed until he returned with companions who had climbed. Sun gilded their faces, their eyes gleamed with awe. It was the visible change in them more than his testimony that stirred the village to rise and follow. So will it be in your reign. Your lived example will echo louder than your spoken words. The move from resurrection to reign is a shift from personal liberty to liberating others. It means living so fully free that others are irresistibly invited into that freedom. This is how a kingdom is built. Each kindness lays a brick, every wise utterance sets a foundation stone, and every generous deed erects a tower. Soon, a city stands where rubble lay a refuge, where others enter and encounter their own transformation. You were not lifted merely to endure. You were raised to govern your sphere with wisdom, grace, and abundance, and to continually enlarge it. If you are willing to bear this light onward, affirm it publicly, I reign in truth.